Hey, everybody. Hey. It's tough to find a positive at this point, but I'm positive the season's almost over. Hey, everybody. What it is, what it was. Happy Sunday to you all. Welcome back to the unfiltered, unedited, uncensored, commercial-free Sharks podcast that is the Pucknologists here on Teal Town, USA. Remember, if you want to keep us commercial-free, use that super chat option during the live shows. Better yet, find us on Venmo at Teal Town, USA. If you're new to the cast, hit that subscribe button on YouTube and leave some comments in the comments section if you weren't able to join us live. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast app, make sure you're subscribed there. And, dude, I don't know about you. I don't like listening to podcasts that crowbar in commercials out of nowhere. So that's why we have that option. Let's go. Well, see, Jerk has changed up his location this week.
So it's good to
it's good to be back.
Good to be back. Yeah,
Nothing changed.
You've been you've had the monopoly on this running joke or bit or whatever you want to call it. Pretty much for the last few years. So it's my turn to get to take this one for a spin.
Oh, what do we?
So I was absent from last week's podcast because I was hanging out with my wife. Look at us, just two married guys. Look at us.
What are we doing on Hot Ones now? Look at us. Look at us.
So yeah, you've had the monopoly on that bit, but there's a new player in town here.
Oh man, I don't know that you're going to be able to top Sherry. All right, the Sharks played 3 games this week, picking up 1 point. You had to pick up that one, didn't you? 73 games.
It's better than winning, right?
Oh, I guess so. Yeah. 73 games. They got 52 points. The Sharks are finally last in the Pacific Division, last in the conference, last in the league. Now, the Blue Jackets are tied in points. The Jackets have 1 game in hand. Both teams have 1 game left against teams outside the playoffs. But let's just take a peek at that for a second, shall we? So the Sharks got Winnipeg. Now they've already lost to Winnipeg once. Or no, I'm sorry, they beat Winnipeg in overtime. So that's one that makes you a little nervous.
Meh.
Vegas, I think that probably penciled that down as for an L.
Yep.
At Arizona. That's the one that, of course, you go
coin flip.
Well, true, but San Jose has beaten them the 2 previous games, and if you're and I'm sure that's to the happiness of Swift Shark. Then 2 versus Colorado. I mean, you'll remember that was probably the Sharks' worst game of the season, that 6-0 curb stomping in the Mile High City.
Yep.
Then Edmonton, who just rocked you. Then at Winnipeg, but Winnipeg has a lot to play for right now.
Mm-hmm.
Then
no kidding, dude.
Yeah. Then you have at Calgary. So excuse me, Calgary's outside the playoff picture right now. So I guess there's a couple. And then Edmonton. If you look at the Blue Jackets side of the coin, it's at the Rangers, at Boston to finish out the season. Yikes. Then versus Florida, maybe. Versus Ottawa, hey. And that's the second night of back-to-backs. Then at Toronto, at New Jersey, and then versus the Rangers again. But then at Philly, you got a chance of winning that one. Versus Pittsburgh, and then versus Buffalo. There's another one. So this is one of those ones where you go, the Sharks control their own destiny, if you will.
Well, and considering the fact that the Sharks are the only team out of 32 to have less than 20 wins, They've certainly done everything in their power to get to this point. And look, like it's being pointed out in the chat. You can still be the worst team in the league. You still got to win the lottery.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. But you want to put yourself in the best position.
Yeah,
of
you
course.
want the best odds.
Of course, yeah. You want to be in the best position.
Dude,
have the best odds.
Full on Hunger Games.
Stuff.
Full on Hunger Games.
Totally.
May the odds ever be in your favor.
At the same time, though, and we've bandied this about offline here. The Sharks have lost 9 in a row.
14 of 15.
14 of 15. The odds say you're going to win at some point. So my advice would be take solace in the fact that the Sharks lose more than they win. You're not going to the worst team of all time is going to win at some point, right? So
you would think.
You just got to hope they lose more than they win, which they've done. I mean, they pretty epically, like I said, the only team in the NHL with less than 20 wins right now. And I, as an aside, you get the emails from the Sharks, right? And they say, hey, we got 6 home games left. And I'm like, oh, good.
No,
6
5
more losses. Here we go.
Yeah, no kidding. Dude, here's the thing that really gets me. They're on pace right now for 59 points.
Good.
That would be their worst 82-game finish since 95-96. And the team that was the worst in franchise history, 92-93, even that team had 8 home wins. And here's the other one that'll bake your noodle. They're on pace for 59 points. Now,
yep.
Again, if they continue this over the next 9 and they only pick up, say, 2 wins, oh boy. Because where are they at now? 53 points. So if they only pick up 2 wins, that puts them at 57. That would tie them for the 2012-2013 team that posted 57 points, but they posted those 57 points in 48 games because that was the shortened season.
It's worth mentioning, I think, as well, that even though the Sharks are in a historically terrible position right now, like, let's not forget, the Colorado Avalanche won the Stanley Cup last year, as we all remember. It wasn't that long ago. I think it was 4 or 5 seasons ago. It wasn't that long ago that the Avalanche were coming off the worst, and that's not an exaggeration, the worst season in the salary cap era.
Yeah.
They in 2017 they had 48 points, right?
And then it was fetch us Joe Sakic. He'll fix this. And Sakic said, "Yep."
And you know what? And now that's not to say that it's a total straight line that the Sharks are going to follow, but it is possible to be, like I said, in the beneath the basement and pull your way out of it.
Mm-hmm. Ryan in the chat. Hockey Jerk's background is so fire, literally. Teal BT coming in with the super chat. Thank you so much for 9 more losses and some luck in May. Hell yeah!
Shout out to Teal BT.
Damn skimpy.
We're not going to ask what the BT stands for, but something does come to mind. Continue.
Bye, Timo. This week, the Sharks picked up that charity point in Edmonton. They got smoked in Vancouver, found a way to lose in Calgary. The Sharks lost this week by a combined score of 17-9. We're also going to touch on some Sharks moves this week, some takes and context on the whole Fanatics-NHL announcement. Some athletic writers own their misses. I like seeing that. And a little check-in on the Barracuda. Was not a good weekend for them. But let's start with the Edmonton game. The best part of this, I guess, the pregame tweet from Randy Hahn. Evidently, he took a shot of the scoreboard at Rogers, and they had posted up there 3 going for 300. Evander Kane, Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid look to become the first trio of teammates in NHL history to hit the 300 career goal mark in the same game. Now, the funny part of this is that none of them scored, and Kane had the worst dash out of both teams. That's where we're at, people. That's where we're at.
Well, and you think about where Edmonton's at, right? I mean, they haven't clinched a playoff spot yet, obviously, but it's
they're
pretty
going
clear. You're right. It's pretty clear that they're going to make the playoffs, and so I feel like from that perspective, you kind of you get to a point where you're in and you're just sort of going through the motions, and maybe that little factoid is what gets them through the day that night.
Exactly. And see, Ryan bringing up Avs dropped to fourth in the lottery and still got Cale Makar. See, that's all I'm hoping for, man.
Well, and I think I don't want to go out on a limb too far here, but I would wager to say that they're fine with that pick.
Yeah, I think they're okay. They're gonna be cool. Reimer got the start on this one. Edmonton was on a 3-game heater. Look, things you love to see in this one. The Oilers get a goal taken away. Things you hate to see. Those Sharks had 3 goals taken away. I've never seen that before in my life. Hurdle offside.
Still making history after all this time.
Dude, I'm telling you. Hurdle offside. Janssen goalie interference. Gregor offside. Hyman goalie interference. Unbelievable. Things you love to see in this one. EK65 had a sick fucking goal in this. Dude, that was sick. And it gave the Sharks back the lead. Yeah, at least you got to see the Sharks battle back, so something you love to see, but you don't like to see yet another overtime game. I mean, at this point, I really don't know what else to say. Kaut got a look on the top line. Agazino comes in after Eklund got sent down. What'd you think about Agazino this week?
I was a little bummed out to see him get called up, only because I thought at this stage, he was better suited for to be on the Barracuda, help them in their playoff push. But at the same time, you do want to reward a guy who's played well. And so the fact that, he got a goal this week, but I thought, aside from that, I thought he played, with I don't want to say that he was like out there running guys over, but it seemed like he played with a level of intensity that you would expect to be lacking in a team that's basically been out of the playoffs since the beginning of the season. So I thought it was nice to see, like, again, some new blood. And if you look at the Sharks roster, it's been a lot of new blood pretty much since the trade deadline. And,
there's going to be even more.
Right. And we're at that point, right, where it's like, yeah, maybe the game you're playing is not worth anything, but on a personal level, you're playing for your livelihood, right? And, Agazino is signed for next year, but, maybe if he impresses in this next little stretch, maybe that's the difference between another year as the Barracuda captain or a fourth line option for the Sharks.
Yeah. Let's move over to Vancouver. Reimer starts another one. Vancouver playing much better since they've basically been eliminated. Funny how that happens. 7-3-0 over their last 10. They're 5-1 over their last 6 coming into this one versus the Sharks. But the one that really got you is Vancouver had won 8 straight against San Jose and 9 of the last 10. Well, make it 10 of the last 11. Of note in this one, Peterson gets recalled. Was one NHL game away from losing his waiver exemption status. So he's going to need waivers if they try to send him back down. You see that happening?
Well, so there's a little, I don't want to say there's controversy, but there's a little bit of confusion on the subject because Peterson was called up under emergency recall rules, right?
So does that make him exempt?
So initially I thought that it would, because, emergency recall, allows you to bypass certain things, right? But, you kind of dig into it a little bit more, and even though it is an emergency recall, it does appear as though he has lost that eligibility, or I'm sorry, the exemption. But I don't know that that's a big deal as it was made out to be, because look at what he did last year. He, in a largely fourth line role, he put up 12 goals last year with the Dallas Stars, and then gets one game under Pete DeBoer, and DeBoer's like, you know what, I have no use for this guy. So I think recent history with him would tell you that, okay, sure, he requires waivers to go to the Barracuda, but I'm not totally convinced that he's a Barracuda guy. You know what I mean?
Like, well, you seemed pretty jacked when you heard that the Sharks got him.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not to disparage Scott Reedy. I think he's a
Who?
fine little, I think he's a fine little prospect, but to essentially do a 1-for-1 deal for someone that's had more success at the NHL level, and I personally think has a, I don't want to say a better skill set, but a more
Say it.
how do I say this? A skill set that's more beneficial to the long-term game, if that makes sense.
All right.
Um, so I thought it was a good pickup, and like I said, I would not be surprised if Peterson finishes out the year with the Sharks, and I don't even consider him an option for the Barracuda next year. I'm unless something drastically changes, I'd be penciling him in as the 4C for next year.
All right. Reimer got worked in this one, dude. Holy crap, did he get worked?
Are we at all surprised? I mean, he's been pretty bad all year.
Yeah, well, and then Kakkonen didn't follow it up, and at this point, I'm just kind of like, just let Kakkonen run it out. Like, see if like a heavier workload gives you something. Because
I don't think it's a coincidence that we talked about this, that Kakkonen's best stretch of the season was when Reimer was injured.
Yeah, so it's like give him the net for the rest of the season. I mean, see what you got. You know that Reimer's out of here after this season.
Yeah, right, exactly.
You got Kakkonen. Yeah, you got Kakkonen for another year. So just like see what you got to make better decisions for next season.
Yeah,
but Quinn,
it's not like it could hurt the Sharks.
Yeah, exactly. What is it going to? Oh no, we can't. You think Kakkonen is gonna help you win some games? I don't know. Quinn, following this one, had a great quote. It was, "The losing is going to stop. I'll tell you that right now. It may not stop this year, but it will stop soon." And I'm thinking it will stop soon because you only have 9 games left.
Well, that's like when I heard that, it reminded me of like your Great Recession era like candidates for elected office, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm going to come in and we're going to get people back to work, that whole thing, which sounds great. And then they say, well, okay, well, what's your plan? And they all, well, you're going to find out.
Oh,
like,
dude.
Oh, well, all right.
We're going to have big, beautiful healthcare in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Huge healthcare.
Yeah. Hold on. Berg had a really interesting comment here. Did anyone read David Pollock's article about the attendance issues in San Jose? David Pollock is like, he hasn't written an article he hasn't covered the Sharks in like 4 years. What Berge, are you time traveling? Like, did you mean Pichelka? Or was this like a really old article?
Well, I think David Pollock I think he puts out a thing every now and again.
Well, I'll take a peek, and if I come across something, we'll talk about it next week. But yeah, I know we covered it a few weeks ago. The Sharks have the worst attendance this season, percentage-wise. They're the only team drawing less than 80%.
Good.
And it's just kind of like, oh, well, I mean, we can all see why. It shouldn't be a shock.
Right. And like we've been saying all along, there's always conversations, right? Of like, okay, well, what can you do, right? What can you get more people to come in? How can you fix the attendance problems? We've been talking about it for 2 years now. It's like the people who want to be there are going to be there. Like putting a good team on the ice, that's what's going to put butts in seats.
Yep.
Like,
job one.
We love Chachka as much as the next guy, right? But it's like,
you know what? I'm starting to get a little burnt out on that, to be honest with
you.
Right,
Right, but I'm saying is like, okay, so I can watch a winning team or I can get a bobblehead. Like,
yeah.
Right?
I feel you. Agazino got his first as a Shark, so you love to see that. You love to see that the Sharks lost in regulation. If they're going to lose in regulation. Demko now 8-0 versus San Jose, and Knyzhov is the only player who is as bad as a -4. And I'm not saying it had anything to do with it, but Knyzhov has been sent down to make room for Thrun, who we will talk about in a little bit. Moving on to Calgary, Kakkonen gets the start. Matinee game. It's the Kings of the Charity Point going up against each other. I think at that point, both teams had like 15 charity points.
Yep, that is correct information.
Yeah.
So still true.
Yeah, so you're just like, good Lord. Yeah, Knyzhov got sent down, and there was a little dude. I mean, I don't tell me is this Quinn just like throwing everybody's names on a dartboard and just what I mean? Because all this he put Vlasic with Karlsson playing on his offside. Ferraro comes up to play with Benning, and McDonald goes down to play with Šimik. Like, what?
I think I don't really give it much thought, only because I think, similar to what we were talking about with Agazino, right, where you want to see what you have in a guy. I think it's pretty common to do a little bit of tinkering, right? I mean, especially everything that's looming surrounding Vlasic. Is he still a buyout candidate? Has he earned more, cachet with the team in terms of whether or not he should still be here? So I think maybe if it's a situation where it's like, well, Vlasic, if you can play with our best defenseman, maybe we'll keep you, kind of thing, So I think the tinkering is very normal. It did bum me out a little bit that Knyzhov had to go down, but I don't think I don't think that's such a terrible thing, though, because again,
Not at all.
No, and I thought, the 9 games he played with the Sharks, I thought he did, I thought he played as well as he could have given the circumstances. And, we have to remember that he's played 9 games and 9 NHL games in the last 20 months. Like, we expected it to be a little bit of a slow burn. And I just, I think it's part of the plan. So, it did, like I said, kind of bum me out. But ultimately, I think long term it's going to be good, right? I mean, you have like.
Well, but is it? Because
I think so.
No, hold on. The rub is, it was reported when the whole Thrun thing happened.
Mm-hmm.
Knyzhov, it was reported, needs to play 6 more NHL games this season or becomes a Group 6 free agent this offseason.
Right.
So, I mean, Sharks have 9 left. He's been sent down. And Knyzhov would be no longer waivers exempt if he plays 4 more. So I don't know. You let him go Group 6 FA?
I mean, it's kind of a 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other kind of thing. Because on one hand, you let him become a Group 6 UFA, like you're relinquishing what little team control you have, right? But
exactly.
At the same time, a guy who has played well for the Sharks, but is a bit of a lesser known commodity and has played 9 NHL games in the last 2 years, I just don't know that many teams would be willing to take a chance on him. And that's not indicative of who he is as a player, but just more the circumstances surrounding everything, right? But
those Sharks play the odds.
Right. But let's also think about it like this, right? Just think about it logistically, just from a roster building perspective, right? So with Nikolai Knyzhov, and I think you'll agree with me here, I don't think there's a question of whether or not, if we are Mike Grier, let's just say, with Knyzhov, I don't think there's a question of whether or not we want to keep Knyzhov, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't really say the same for Šimik or McDonald or even Vlasic.
I've got like 3 Šimik jerseys. I'm so ready for this guy to be shipped out.
Right, and so that's the thing. Somebody like Knyzhov, who I'm just kind of assuming here, your plan is to keep him. You more or less know what you have, and you want what he brings to the table. So, he doesn't have to be in the NHL because you don't really you don't need to prove yourself if you've already proven it, right?
All right, but Wheels wants to know what a Group 6 UFA is.
Basically, what it is if you're say you're at the age where you should be a restricted free agent, but you haven't played haven't played the appropriate amount of professional games, not professional, sorry, NHL. You haven't played the appropriate amount of NHL games, and so you kind of end up in this weird little area where you're RFA aged, but you haven't accrued the correct amount of seasons or games played, right? And so you fall into this weird area, and there are Group 6 UFAs every year, and the list of guys is usually small. I have never seen it more than like 10 or 15 names,
if that.
Right, and so it's again, it's not something that I would worry about. I mean, especially because, I think even though Šimek has come back to play, what we've seen this year is things are always a little bit dicey with him. And so he could just as easily be back on the injured reserve before we know it, and Knyzhov comes right back up.
Yeah.
I think this is a lot of information here, but I think what else is worth mentioning, and I'll have to double check on this. I believe Knyzhov was emergency recalled. And so the rules of emergency recall stipulate, it was an emergency recall. Once the guy he's replacing, in this case Šimek or McDonald, take your pick, once the guy he's replacing is healthy, you have to send him back down. Now, tomorrow morning we could see Knyzhov get called back up on a normal transaction, or even another emergency loan. Say, like I said, say maybe Šimek or McDonald are not there.
Mm-hmm. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, Calgary. So on this,
I don't want to talk about it. I'm gonna go full. The Sharks lost, but let's talk about.
I gotta go.
Put a piece of paper over the scoreboard.
Yeah. Oh Jesus. Can we not? I mean, the storyline of this one was Erik Karlsson post game saying shitty on air twice.
Love it.
Both times saying we're trying to make the best out of a shitty situation. Hey, try doing a weekly podcast on this. You want to talk about doing the best? Trying to cover this team.
So a funny story.
I know tons, but share yours.
So I'm not gonna. I'll tell you who said this after we wrap up the show because I don't want to jam anyone up.
Sure.
But this would have been around the time Pavelski left, so about 4 years ago. I was having a conversation with somebody about, who's going to be the Sharks' next captain, and I said, I think I think Couture makes the most logical sense, just the longevity, the way that he kind of steps up in the playoffs, and he's very, very accountable, holds himself accountable, holds everybody accountable. I'm like, to me, that's an easy choice. And this person was like, no, it won't be Logan Couture. He's too honest. They don't want the captain crapping all over the team on a nightly basis. I think it's going to be Erik Karlsson because guy doesn't have it in him. He's just going to say the prepared statement and then move on. Right. And then, so I hear you say, the guy said, we're in a shitty situation. And I'm like, doesn't sound quite the same.
Yeah, not too much. Oh, I did want to drop in one before we go further. Anthony asked, Anthony says, does anyone have the Discord link? Yes, Jerk does. So hit up hockey.
Yeah, send me a DM on Twitter.
Yeah, hockey_jerk. So I guess the one thing you can take away from this, EK has 2 assists.
Yep.
10 points from 100. We'll see if he can pull that out over the next 9 games. And we're another game closer to the lottery. The thing you, of course, hated to see was the fact that Columbus lost later in the day. So,
but you know what? The Sharks are worse in the standings than Columbus right now. So as long as they keep pace, they're still in the money.
Yeah, but I would like a little breathing room. You know what I mean?
Sure, that's fair.
Hero and zero this week. I mean, my hero. It's I don't know anybody who didn't have to play this week. Svechnikov. There you go. You're my hero. McDonald. I mean, it's hard to find. I guess I just go Karlsson because he, had 2 goals in a game. He had 2 assists in a game. So,
yep.
And again, 10 away from the century mark. So, okay, easy pick. I go Karlsson. Not exactly a bold choice.
No, that's a very sexy pick. Like,
who do you got?
So, and this is. I kind of have a lot on my agenda here. On one hand,
I think this player, you missed a week. It's fair.
Sure. I think this player deserves I don't like that word. I think this person's earned the distinction of Hero of the Week, but also I think this person is one of those guys who's unfairly kind of crapped all over. So I'm going to say Steven Lawrence. He had 2 points, 2 points in the 3 games this week. One of a few players, and again, very few, one of a few players who did not finish the week as a minus. I think he gets bonus points for how sweet that goal against the Oilers was. And I just think he's a guy, like, he's not going to blow you away. Like, somebody may look at his stat line and says, "Oh my God, this guy only has 8 goals. What the hell? This guy sucks." But when your expectation is in the 7 to 10 goal range, I don't know how you can be pissy about a guy doing exactly that.
Yeah, meeting expectations is all we're asking for.
Right. And so I just, I think he's been a quality add to the team. And, I think there's a lot of unfair sort of mentioning just because he was brought over in the Burns deal. But for what's expected of him, I think, he's been, delivering time and time again.
All right. A couple people in the chat making their play for Agazino getting a hero nod this week. And that's, hey, solid. I have no problem with that selection. And we were talking about Knyzhov a minute ago. I should also note that he did have an assist on the only goal scored by Bortolo today in the CUDA game. So good for him. 0, dude, just this goaltending. The goaltending is just so 0.
Yeah, it's just there's no better way to put it. It's just not good. Like, you don't have to say anything else.
I was going to say, so I take Reimer, you take Kakinen, or the other one? I mean, or do you have somebody else notable for your 0?
I don't want to elaborate more than just saying their name because I think we've pitchforked this person too much. Logan,
I was going to say, it's funny you say that because I'm like, my mind is spinning. I'm like, that could be any number of people.
And I am, I saw you threw up Logan Teal 86's chat. I am going to interrupt myself because Logan Teal 86 is subscribing to the Hockey Jerk School of roster building. So appreciate it, buddy. I hate to do it because we pitchforked him enough, but Mario Ferraro, like,
I mean, he's earned it.
Right. And again, there is a degree to which I feel bad because he's a hell of a guy, but it's just the numbers are what they are. When you, like, D pairs are more or less have similar stats, maybe not offensively, but generally speaking, goal against, goal for, you're on the ice at the same time. Right. Mm-hmm. It continues to blow me away how Mario Ferraro has worse defensive stats than his pairmate. And like, I it doesn't make sense to me unless there's something I'm missing. And, -5 on the week.
I don't know if it's that case of, remember at the beginning of the season, Ferraro came out and was asked about the Burns deal, and he's like, yeah, I got to step up my game. I'm going to have to, try to bring a little bit more offense, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, dude, you still need to work on defense.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a guy named Erik Karlsson who can do that.
Yeah, he's got everybody on his back. Just be defensively responsible. It goes back to what you were saying. This is all I'm asking of you. Just meet those expectations.
And here's the weird thing. We honestly, like, again, we don't want to jam anyone up here, but I feel like you could do a whole podcast about Mario Ferraro because he's on pace to, well, maybe he's a little bit below pace, but he's around the same number in terms of shots blocked. He's around the same number in terms of hits, a little bit below hits, which I think is a contributing factor, but takeaways he's stepped up on, giveaways he's cleaned up considerably. So, like, those elements of the defensive game, the physicality, the stick work, the defensive IQ, if you will, all of those things have improved. And yet more and more, on the rush, he's getting beat, right? And it's kind of weird. I don't know if it's a situation where, like, because I think the brain is there. Like, there is he's got the right idea. He has the skill. He has the expertise. I think it's just a situation, like you said, maybe trying to do too much where, he's not making bad plays per se. Like, he's not giving away the puck at an alarming rate, but it's more of just, being out of position or not not stick checking a guy when you need to, or running a guy over and it leaves somebody else completely open. You know what I mean? So it's a very interesting case. Like I said, I think you could do a whole podcast because the defensive stats would tell you that he's had a better season than last year, right? But obviously minus 27 does not tell you that.
Yeah. You could do a whole podcast on Ferraro. So with that, I will say, JD, you're welcome. I should give you one to knock out. So, I mean, what do you want to... Well, here, John asking, can the Sharks just bury Šimek in the A next season, keep Knyzhov in the N, and there you go? No.
I'm gonna say one of the words that people don't like. Starts with a B. Buyout.
How much time does he have left, though?
So next year is the final year of his deal. Let me paint a picture.
See,
for you,
and so
okay?
that's but I'll let you paint your picture. But the thing that I start off with, if he's only got 1 year left, same thing with like LeBanc, and then same thing with like Kakinen. It's just kind of like, look, this team is on pace to suck again next season.
Sure.
It's why even buy it out and like free up, have all that extra money 2 years from now. You're gonna suck next year, so just eat it.
Counterpoint.
Bring it.
So I think on the subject of LeBanc, I'm with you on that because like who on the Barracuda or even a guy that's been called up and down with the Sharks, who stands to take a roster spot next year? It's going to be Bordelot. It's going to be Eklund. Those are kind of your front runners, right?
Knyzhov?
No, forwards.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize you were only talking about forwards because we're talking about Šimek. So
right. Well, there's a whole preamble. So
my bad.
Right. So so Eklund and Bordelot, unless something explodes in training camp or maybe the Sharks make a trade or a free agent signing, if nothing else changes, right? Eklund and Bordelot are really the only guys that you have to make room for. And guess what? They traded Nieto. They traded Bonino. Andreas Johnson is going to go away. I'm still convinced Noah Gregor is going to go. Same with Evgeny Svechnikov. So just, through sort of like the sun rising, there's going to be room for these guys. You can't really say the same for the defense. And now, in a bubble, I think your idea of we'll just wait it out. There's 1 year left. The Sharks suck anyway. Mm-hmm. In a bubble, I agree with that. But think about it like this. And I guess this is assuming that Erik Karlsson doesn't get traded away. So just bear with me. But you've got, you signed Henry Thrun. You don't lure a college player. You don't tell a college player to drop out of school and play pro hockey unless you want them in the NHL, right?
Sure.
You have Nikolai Knyzhov, who once things get under control should be in the NHL. I can't say if I've been overly impressed with what Cicek has brought to the table, but I think he's done well enough to earn more of a look. Muka Medulin, again, there's not a lot of work there in North America. There's not a lot to look at, but that's a guy that is going to get a chance. That's going to be a guy who's going to get a chance to make the Sharks, and I think you could say the same thing about Gannon Larocque as well. So now all of a sudden, you do some quick mathematics on that. That's how many names did I say there? That's 4 or 5 names. That's 4 or 5 names right there who are not currently on the roster that conceivably could be. So if buying out, say, somebody like Šimek, or maybe you send a guy like Jacob McDonald on waivers, maybe that makes room if you've got 1, 2, or even 3 of those 5 names that I listed who are pushing for a spot. And I think as much as we didn't like Balcers getting bought out last summer, guess what? It made room for other guys to come in and do something. You know what I mean? And I know like I said, I called it the B word because it's a little scary for a lot of people, but the Šimek buyout is actually one of the more tame ones. I mean, you just look at it again from a logistical perspective, not dollars and cents, but just a roster spot, right? $2.25 million for a guy who is either on your bottom pair or, as Kevin Lacey pointed out, is going to be on long-term injured reserve. So, LTIR, you can kind of mess with that a little bit, but
I feel like the short answer of what you're saying is there is no redemption for the Redeemer.
No, because here's the thing: if you buy Šimek out, guess what? That $2.25 million becomes $950K. Just from a dollar's perspective, we like that. You're saving money, especially if the Sharks, I don't think they go big game hunting, but maybe they go after somebody who's maybe kind of in the middle, maybe a guy who's like 28, 29, right? And then the following year, you're having a 650 you're having a $650,000 cap charge that you wouldn't otherwise have, which I understand that's where a lot of people get really nervous, but that's where your point of it, the dollars are not going to matter when the Sharks suck anyway, right?
Yeah. We have a correction from Lacey, though. I guess you said something about Thrun dropping out. He's about to graduate.
Is he? Okay, well, that's a good point. Even better. What better graduation gift? But even then, you know what I mean? You still, even though he is going to graduate, it still is a lot to, turn pro, especially because, as we all know, and shout out to Kevin for reminding us of this, August 15th, he could have said, you know what, I want to sign with Vegas or Tampa Bay or.
He would have been like, I feel like playing next to Cale Makar would probably help my game.
Right, exactly. And so there's, there is a degree of luring that is in play here.
But
so
Harvard, everything goes through Massachusetts and that whole New England area.
Which it's funny that you bring that up. One of the people on the one of the people in our Discord server was, kind of wondering, kind of horse-eyeing the future a little bit, and saying, hey, the Sharks goaltending is a bit of a dicey situation, and it just so happens that the Boston Bruins look like they've got 2 number 1 goalies. And so this person had said, watch, the Mike Greer's going to trade the Sharks second round pick for Jeremy Swayman. And I'm like, why are you saying that like that's a bad thing? You know what I mean? Like, let's do that.
Yeah, we should do that.
You should do that.
So, what is there to root for over the final? Except for losses and EK also hitting 100.
That's really it.
Yeah. It's just like, dude, yeah, boost that trade value, EK. Make it so so that the Sharks don't have to eat quite so much of your contract.
There are certain guys that I would like to see score. Like, I would like to see Jacob Peterson score. I would like to see, I just want certain guys, like the guys who are going to be here next year. I want to see them finish strong. Like, there's been a lot of dialogue about how Hurdle's had a tough year this year. I want him to finish the year like really well,
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, he's been wearing it. Dude, the goal differential in March -33. Good Lord. All right, let's move on to some things that happened.
I do want to say one thing here really quick. Just we can put a bow on this. And I don't know who put it out there. I can't recall who put it out there, but they had said, buying out Šimek would be a mistake because burying him in the NHL or in the AHL, you could save more money that way. I just did the math, and if the Sharks bury Šimek in the AHL next year, they save. There you go. They save $1.2 million off the cap if they bury him next year. If they buy him out, they save $1.3 million.
There you go.
Not to say that one is better than the other, but I don't think they're vastly different either way.
Yeah. Okay, so you weren't here last week, obviously.
I wasn't.
Sammy!
Very happy about that fact. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it doesn't have the same ring to it. Sammy!
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
You gotta. There's not enough consonants in the name.
I feel you. Eklund got sent down.
Yes, he did.
As far as I'm concerned, the absolutely correct choice. It just makes all the sense in the world. No reason to burn a deal when you can control him for another year. But a lot of people pointing out, should Greer be a little worried about that? Because will Eklund be more inclined to play hardball for the bag rather than taking some sort of a discount or bridge deal? Because he's going to be like, motherfuckers, you disappointed me twice. Now I'm going to disappoint you.
So I feel like there's always a lot of conversation about like when players come up, right? Now, and I'll just ask you straight up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say Eklund's entry-level contract expires and he didn't hit the 9-game threshold, right? So he's going to slide and his entry-level contract will expire in the summer of 2026, which feels like a lifetime away from now.
Hey, it's when I think that this team might start like winning more games than they lose, but go ahead.
And okay, I just want to point out, Ricky, I didn't leave it out. I literally said that in my initial argument. So go back and listen.
Come on, girls. You're both pretty.
With Eklund, he's expiring at the end of summer 2026. So let's say at the expiration of that deal, he comes to Mike Greer and he says, okay, whatever, I played well for you and I want to make $6 million a year. Mm-hmm. Tell me what's bad about that. Because I look at it as like, if Eklund is asking for $6 million a year, chances are he's worth it. Right? Like I think there's a lot, and again, I understand it. You look at players look at William Nylander, you look at Kirill Kaprizov, you look at Matt Boldy, you look at all these players who went from either entry-level deal or a very small bridge deal to a big contract. I understand the nervousness there, but all those players, again, were worth the money. Like it. Yeah,
dude, Timo Meier is not a $9 million player. He's a $9.5 million player.
Right, and so I just think if it's a situation where he's asking for that kind of money, chances are he's played well enough to earn it. Now, the flip side of that is if somebody like Noah Gregor last year with his 2.5% shooting percentage is like, well, I want 2 million, 3 million. That's when you're like, okay, dude, score some goals and then we'll talk. But if Eklund at the end of his ALC, if Eklund's a 70, 80 point guy, you pay him and you don't even worry about it.
But do you worry about him? Like, yeah, he's doing really well, and he's kind of like, nah, you know what? I don't want to play here.
Same thing as Timo Meier. You trade him and you get a bucket load of assets back.
All right then. Magnus Cronus season is over. Denver upset in the first round of the NCAA tourney. He's a senior, could sign with the Sharks, or he can wait until August, become a UFA. How do you think that's going to play out? Because we already know that the Sharks are just log jam with goalies.
I was wondering, like, when when the conversation started, like around the trade deadline about guys who are going to be seniors and they're eligible for UFA, like based on what you're talking about, Mann and McAniemi and Kakkonen and all these goaltenders the Sharks have on the younger side, I was thinking that there was maybe an outside chance where Corona would end up getting traded at the deadline, similar to Thrun, where a team wants to take a chance at signing him before the UFA period. And then I believe it was Shang put out a little ditty basically saying, there's, Corona could still potentially sign. And so, I mean, if he signs, great. And, if he doesn't want to sign, I hope that, the Sharks have the foresight to trade his rights before, August 15th.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing that kind of hurts too is that out of everybody, whether it's Mann or McAniemi or Corona or Beaupit or Gaudreau, it's like it doesn't seem now. And granted, guys like Mark and Lacey are going to be able to answer this far better, but it doesn't seem like any of them are kind of really standing head and shoulders above the others at this point. And there's
Yeah, it still kind of feels like jump ball a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is that it's jump ball, and at the the bucket you're trying to score in is not being defended.
Right.
Dell, Kakin, and Reimer, they're like, yeah, shoot it, fire it up. We've got nothing. Lacey saying shouldn't be worried whether he signs or not. The Sharks signed Harvard defenseman Henry Thrun to a 2-year contract. He immediately joins the Sharks roster. Could play as soon as this Tuesday when the team hosts the Winnipeg Jets. Now, I just want to put this out there.
Do it.
We talked about this when Eklund scored his first goal. It's Tuesday night. It's against the Jets. Not exactly a team that travels well.
Okay.
If something good happens with Thrun, or if somebody down the line, like say 4 years from now, Thrun becomes, the Sharks version of Cale Makar, right?
Okay.
Anybody who tells you I was at Thrun's first game is probably lying.
Yeah. No, I think again the Sharks history with the third round is well documented. So I kind of like the Sharks taking a chance on Thrun. I said this, when we talked about it at the time. I had said this, but it yes, I know there's going to be people who say, "Oh my God, the third round pick," but like whether you trade it for a guy that doesn't work out or you draft a guy that doesn't work out, like
still a lottery ticket.
Right, exactly. And so there's a lot of dialogue about, and I know you're going to have something to say about this, but there's a lot of dialogue about, could Henry Thrun, could he be the next, kind of like the next Matt Carl? And I personally think if he is the next Matt Carl and the Sharks paid a third to get him, I personally think that's a heist. That's a heist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a fleecing.
The Sharks put on their black gloves and their ski mask and they went in and they banged the shit out of the jewelry display.
Dude, that was a deal and Doug move right there.
Right.
All right. Well, it's one of those ones we got to put a pin in and see how it plays out. But
yeah, and like the way, as we've talked about before, the way Mike Grier has really accumulated defensive prospects over the last 8 months, like, we could be in a situation where next season the Sharks' 7 defensemen that they carry on the roster, over half of them are guys who are playing their first NHL game, or maybe their first, whatever, maybe they're on their 7th NHL game, if they play this year.
I just want to hit something that Ricky brought up. He said, on the topic of goalies, can we talk about how bad the Hill trade was? I mean, seriously, why did you keep Reimer if your intention was to keep the 2 youngins? Ricky, we all, at least I can't speak for Jerk. He'll speak for himself. But, dude, I was all about keep Reimer, keep Kakinen. Let me do my best Curtis Brown imitation here. Why? Because Reimer had one of his best seasons ever last year. And the idea was going into this was that if he could continue that, Reimer could be a decent trade piece at the deadline. We talked about that really early on, that if Reimer can continue that, wouldn't that be nice to see him fetch maybe a 4th or a 3rd at the deadline? Get something back for him. Now, obviously, Reimer has not played well. The whole team has sucked ass, but Reimer has not played well. The other thing is that Kakinen was not this bad at the end of last season. And Hill had injury issues. I mean, what did we give up to get him, and then what did we get back for? It's like we traded a 2nd and then got back a 4th.
Right.
Well, that's what the market bared at the time. That's what he was worth. So that's where I was at on that. What say you?
Well, I just think with Hill, I think it was a bit of a jam job because, like, the Sharks didn't get rid of Adin Hill because he was a bad goalie. Like, they got rid of him because
he couldn't stay healthy.
He couldn't stay healthy, and the 2 other guys that were here, Reimer and Kakinen, made more of an impression on the management staff. And I kind of am with Ricky a little bit, where I would have preferred going with a Hill Kakinen tandem, only because we talked about it at the end of the last season, where it was like, it's hard to judge him because he's been injured. I would think that he's earned kind of another kick at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I do agree that, I think Hill Kakkonen as a tandem would have been the play, but at the same time, to your point, AJ, I think, if you're sort of playing the short game, it made more sense to get rid of Hill because, he was somebody where the value wasn't as high. So a team that needed a goalie like Vegas, they could, take a flyer on him for cheap. Whereas Reimer coming off his best season of his career, that's not a, hey, can we try him out for a fifth? Like that's, that it wouldn't have worked that way with Reimer.
Yeah, no doubt. And then was that a Greer move or was that prior to Greer?
Trading away Hill.
Yeah, Hill.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, Hill for the fourth.
That's a great question. Actually, I think that was.
I just want to give credit where credit is due.
Yeah, I'll have to double check on that because I don't know if that was. I don't know if that was Greer or if that was
Joe Will.
Joe Will. No, I think that was Mike Greer who did that. And I mean, I know you pay a second and you only get a fourth on return. That's anybody who's an investor will tell you that's a crappy return on investment. But
hey,
think about it like this. Say you lose Hill for nothing after this season because he's a UFA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then you've got nothing.
Yeah, so at least you get a little bit back on your investment.
Yeah, and also that fourth that the Sharks got from Vegas is in 2024. So the Sharks, at the time they had 2 years, but even now they have a year to kind of marinate on it, and say, okay, do we want to pick a guy? Do we want to trade for a guy? Do we want to include this in a package for a bigger guy?
Throw this in with Erik Karlsson, so we don't have to eat so much salary.
Right. I think, there's always like, if you go back in and you can do it by team, by GM, by season, like, every trade is in some way or another is sort of intertwined and interconnected with one another. I mean, we talked about it last month, right? Minnesota acquired Marcus Johansson and Gus Nyquist using draft picks that they got for, laundering money for Ryan O'Reilly and for Dmitry Orlov. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So every move is kind of inherently tied to one another. I think if that fourth round pick gets traded next year, like for a player or a prospect or a big piece or whatever, we're going to say, oh, you know what? It's a good thing we traded Hill when we did because we got this pick that's going to help us right now.
Sure. And let's see what happens with Hill. And how many goalies do they have? So
Vegas has got like 7 goalies right now.
I mean, it's ridiculous. So we'll see what happens. And Sleepy saying, it'd be hilarious if Hill takes Vegas to the Cup. I don't know that Vegas gets out of the second round, to be honest with you. Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Yeah, I mean, if they, it certainly doesn't help them that their best player is hurt again, right?
Yeah.
So
let's move on to the bet.
No.
I mean, I'm not, dude. I'm not saying like you.
No, say it.
like you were last Sunday when you were out. You might have been shopping for white flags to wave, but with 9 games left, 7 versus playoff teams, and one of those teams that they're going to play outside, they've already lost 3 to Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
5 of the final 9 are at SAP, where they've won 2 games in the year 2023 of our Lord.
Nice.
So what I'm saying is, you, sir, need the Sharks to go 5-4. You need them to have a winning record over the final 9, which they have not done all season. They have never had a stretch of 9 games where at the end they had a winning record.
Yeah, that's
since the bet. Yeah, the bet was from the February 7th. It was, I said the Sharks would not win 10 of their final 31. And you're like, no, I think they can do that. And ever since then, 4, 14, and 4 over the last 22 games. That is a colossal soiling of the sheets, my friend. So, I think what we're saying is you won the first one. It looks as though I'm winning the second. So we'll settle this in the off season when EK is traded.
We'll see.
Yeah. Oh man. So look, the one thing we can say is that there are records, people. You look at Erik Karlsson. He broke Brent Burns' record. The San Jose Sharks, by the way, this week set an NHL record, the most losses in games you had the lead in. 49 times they lost 32 of those games. Good Lord. The other thing that gets me, dude, the goals differential this season. We already know that on the whole, it sucks. You can tell just you can infer that by the record. You know, this team doesn't have, double, hasn't hit 20 wins or whatever it is at this point. Like, you can infer, I bet you that goal differential is kind of shitty. But the way it goes on by period, their goal differential in the first, -9. In the second, -21. And in the third, -28. I'm sorry. It's -38 in the third period.
What do we always say?
It's
right where we want them.
Hey now. Reimer over the last 5, 1, 2, and 2 with an 889 and a 3.69. Kakinen in the last 5, 0, 4, and 1, 860, 5.2. That goaltending is that is not league average goaltending. That is bottom of the barrel goaltending.
Yeah, not even close.
I can't. Oh my Lord. I would venture to say that there'd be a few times this season the Barracuda could beat the Sharks. Like, without even trying, to be honest, on a couple of these games. Sleepy asking how many of those losses were by 1 goal. A lot of them. Holy cannoli. Let's move on and get into some fun stuff here around the NHL. Let me ask you this. Has Daryl Sutter lost the room in Calgary?
Yeah, I would think so. I'm not convinced that he ever had it.
Well, 32. Dude, Jack Adams last season.
Right.
Yeah, something going right. But 32 Thoughts is quoted. Nazem Kadri has been very vocal about what he's seen in Calgary this season and why they aren't firing on all cylinders. He's been very blunt about the communication between players and the coach. And
that's because Daryl Sutter's been jamming people up.
But that's Sutter's, that's his MO. I mean, dude, remember the way he jammed up Karlyuk back in the day?
Right, but even it's just been on fire, his first NHL, Jacob Pelletier plays his first NHL game, and Daryl Sutter's like, well, what number was he? And even, Huberdeau, I think Huberdeau was early in the season was benched, or maybe he had an equipment issue or something was going on. And Daryl Sutter was like, yeah, he went to go take a shit during the third period. What,
I remember that.
What are you doing? You know what I mean? You talk about jamming up your players in the media. That's a way that you lose them.
Well, references were made that Sutter is the reason why Tkachuk and Gaudreau got the hell out.
Which we said that 2 years ago, dude. We said that specifically about Gaudreau, but we said that.
Yeah. I mean, Chief knows how to wear out a welcome. So dude, is he going to be gone this offseason? Because he just recently signed a 2-year extension that kicks in this summer.
Well, so here's the thing. Daryl Sutter signed a 2-year extension. Jonathan Huberdeau signed an 8-year extension.
Oh.
And if I'm Tree, I'm like, okay, this coach is rubbing my guys the wrong way, especially my best player that I just frickin' gave $80 million to.
Right. And Tree's like, I'm not getting fired.
Right. And so, he's maybe I have to do the player a solid on this one.
Yeah. But I mean,
especially because I don't know about you, but when LA fired Daryl Sutter, however many years ago that was, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever it was, I thought that was it. Right?
Oh, that he's gonna go to the farm with his 2 rings and just enjoy life.
I think maybe he had a very brief television career, I think, and then he was the they always make up bullshit titles. The special assistant to the assistant, whatever, associate coach for the Ducks. And I was like, okay, he's just going to dink around for a little bit and then that's it. And then he gets the head coaching job here in Calgary. And I'm like, I thought this guy was done.
Well, to be fair, I think also he had the history with Calgary. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like he'd already done it, so he was all pretty comfortable there.
Yeah, but that was 15 years ago.
Big deal. I don't know. We're going to see what happens with him in the offseason. But, it's, again, 2 rings, Jack Adams. I mean, he rubs people the wrong way, but early on he does get some results. But I
think you'll see that with just about anything. Like even if the new coach sucks, the fact that they're new, I think juices everybody.
Oh yeah, you always get that new car smell at the beginning. But that was the funny thing about hearing Randy Hahn talk. Who's the coach with Vancouver now? Who's the guy who came back? Talkett. And he was saying something about since Talkett came in, this team has kind of bounced back, and I'm like, oh, so exactly the same story as last year with Boudreau.
Right. Well, and
so it's Vancouver just needs to change their coach the first week of every season, and then they can start off the right way.
Well, and they even kind of mentioned, they kind of flamed the Canucks a little bit. They were like, oh, if you want to live in Vancouver for a couple of years, just become the coach. And they did this whole thing. They did this whole thing over the last 10 years. Vancouver's had, I think, 6 head coaches, which
since like Alain Vigneault, right?
Yeah, it was Alain Vigneault, and then it was Torts, and then it was Willie Desjardins, and then it was Travis Green, and then it was Bruce Boudreau, and now it's Talk.
Oh my Lord.
Hey, but you know what? But to your point, I mean, you look at what Talk has done since he's gotten there. I mean, he's been the head coach now, I think, for 26 games for the Canucks, and JT Miller, who
dude is on fire.
He was having a down year. Extension hadn't even get kicked in yet, and he was maybe going to be traded. And now look, I mean, he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's got like 20. He's got something like 26 points in those 26 games. So whatever Talkett is doing, he's got him humming right now.
Jeez, that is unbelievable. Oh man, speaking of bringing fans together, Calgary fans evidently have been brought together to see Daryl Sutter shown the door, but the NHL fan base as a whole was brought together earlier this week. The fan base completely united like nothing else could in all the wrong ways because Fanatics in the NHL signed a 10-year deal. I don't get Gary Bettman in these ridiculous long deals. I don't.
Job seeking. Well,
dude,
you pads the revenues.
It pads the revenues, but I sit there and, there better be an out, like, after 3 years. Like, okay, the first 2 years, you're still going to use the Adidas factory and blah, 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 and maybe their design team or some shit like that. But after that 3rd year, you're going to start, like, have some things to say.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you put something in there. Or maybe you sit there and go, hey, 5 years, and then we'll do it year by year after that.
I bet you there's an out option for the NHL.
Well, remember, we broke it that the Sharks.
Oh, did we?
Had it. Yes, we did. The Sharks had an 8-year agreement for the Fanatics to run the Sharks shop. They got out of it after 4 years. It'll be funny to see if the NHL goes through something very similar, but nothing has brought everybody together like this.
Right. Well, and worth mentioning too, I don't know how long their deal with the Fanatics was, but Arizona Coyotes pulled the pin early as well.
Yes, that is absolutely true. So it's funny seeing some of the different things here, but the press, was this the press release? I think it was. Yeah.
On that same note, I just love I think I mentioned it before. I loved that article that had come out about that basically said, and not, kind of, we're going to imply it. No. There was an article came out, and it did not imply this message. It came out and said it, where it was like, the reason why the Islanders are doing so well in merchandise sales is because they're not going with Fanatics.
Right. Dude,
the article literally said that. Like that's not a subliminal message,
right? Dude, The Athletic had an article. It's like fans are furious about NHL going with Fanatics, and they should be.
Yeah.
But one of these lines from the press release, dude, it said, feedback from fans has helped guide the design process of replica NHL jerseys. Now, right there, I want to stop and go, who asked for these shiny crests? And so you're like, oh, okay, that was the feedback. It's we need shinier logos that look really bad. This is leading to innovations like a more tailored female jersey. I don't know about you, Jerk. I remember Reebok putting out women's fit jerseys. So I'm not sure how they're trying to give Fanatics the credit to that. But the best is Mac said, Mac is, one of the people of stature at Fanatics. This quote is hysterical. Max said, replica jerseys have received a 4.5-star rating on a 5 scale. On par with authentic products. No one has said that. I know a few. I know a few women that. Oh, I like the Fanatics style jersey because it's cut for a woman and they are soft. Like that, I will give you. But those same women that I know that have that, they also said, yeah, it's fine to wear like around the house or whatever because it's comfortable. But they also said, I would never wear it to a game though because it looks like shit.
The only compliment that I've heard about the Fanatics breakaway jerseys is that they're true to size. That's the only compliment I've heard.
Christ.
Which I don't know about. As somebody who purchases clothing for themselves, true to size is kind of like the cherry on top. Right? Like,
I mean, dude, I've said it a bajillion times, dude. I've tried on shirts in a sporting goods shop that were Fanatics. Every shirt looked exactly the same logo on the front, same size, all of that. Put it on, 3 different fits. Unbelievable. But I want to play you this video. And I will be stopping it at times to comment, but this is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Check this out.
And frankly, when you're in business with Michael, he is just a force of nature. And
yeah, he's a force of nature. He's fucking monopolized and ruined sports apparel. But do go on, Gary.
We have had a partnership that's been very broad-based and encompassing e-commerce, retail, performance, fan-friendly merchandise, everything across the spectrum. This was the next logical step for us in being in business together, and we have complete confidence that they're going to do a great job.
Complete confidence that they're going to do a great job. Has the NHL account looked at any of the feedback from the announcement? Like Wyszynski. Go look at Wyszynski when he put out his tweet that linked to his articles that had all the details about this. There were three people said, well, let's take a wait and see approach. And that's fine. But you had 500 other tweets respond, no, this is going to suck because their reputation for sucking is so huge that they can't get shit right. They fuck up constantly. But let's go on.
What's better about it than the Adidas deal?
It's different. Adidas.
What's better about it than the Adidas deal? It's different. No, it's more money, Gary. Be honest. Fanatics threw a ton of money at you. Nike wouldn't even bid. They're just like, who cares? But it's different. Yeah, because more money is being thrown at our face. But go ahead.
Good partner, but they're more focused on soccer and footwear. We're a little bit different, and Michael and Fanatics cover the broad spectrum of everything we're doing, and we've had together pretty dramatic double-digit growth over the last few years.
I'm sure it's easy to have double-digit growth over the last few years when you charge fans to return your mistake, when you charge them handling fees, when you keep their money for 3, 4, 5 months before shipping out an order. Yeah, that does make things go up.
So we love the partnership. We think Fanatics does a great job in everything they do.
Sir, you are totally wrong about that. A Fanatics Sucks Twitter account gained 3 times their follows in 5 days because of the outrage on this. But go ahead, Gary.
Michael's extremely progressive and forward-thinking. He's a visionary.
Yes, I have a vision on how to monopolize and ruin sports apparel across the North America. Release the vision.
He can execute, and that's the most
No, he should be executed, but go ahead.
important thing you want from your partner.
Marketing to fans, in terms of making sure it's available in a lot of different places.
He does
Making sure it's available in a lot of different places. Yes, there are multiple crappy websites that have Fanatic stuff.
it all, especially on things like special events, Stanley Cup final merchandise, when we do our big events like
Special events. We all remember how they completely screw up our the last dog to the bowl when it comes to special events and getting merch out to everybody.
the Winter Classic and our other outdoor games. They do it all.
Look, we wake up and go to bed thinking about how do we best service the fan. And
No, you wake up, go to bed thinking about how best to screw the fan, Michael.
we have a company that's 100% of its business comes from taking care of the sports fan. We're going to do the best job, and that's really what we aspire to do every day. And, you know, I think
We aspire to do the best job every day. You fail miserably. Miserably. Now, here's the better part for those of you who haven't heard. Elliot Friedman got in on this on 32 Thoughts earlier this week. The opening line in this, chef's kiss.
I didn't recognize the hatred of Fanatics. And I have to say that the hockey fans, you really educated me this week. And I appreciated the education. You took me to a place I didn't know, and I did some work because of it. I had one experience with Fanatics that I didn't like. I don't order a lot of merchandise, to be perfectly honest. I ordered a Jack Rathbone jersey. But it turned out someone else got me a Jack Rathbone jersey. So I tried to cancel it, like within a day. And they're like, no, it's already printed. You can't cancel it. It's yours. And I was like, you know,
Tried to cancel an order. You can't even do that. Are you kidding me? Go check out the 32 Thoughts from earlier this week. That it goes on for a lot longer, but it comes down to him saying, I didn't realize so many people hated it.
I thought it was interesting the point that he had made about this is Fanatics' kind of last chance to prove that they're a viable partner. I thought that was an interesting note.
Yeah, again, go check out 32 Thoughts from earlier this week. I think it's like at the 29-minute mark, and it's only about 5 or 6 minutes, but it's really cool. But yeah, there's been a few that have kind of made that point where if they fuck this up, and just based on historical data, they will. Good Lord. And here's the funny thing that came to me, because again, I know Eric and I did a reaction thing about this when the news dropped, but I've since listened to a lot more things, learned a lot more. The one thing that gets me though is like, consider that when the league announced helmet ads, fans were like, "Oh, that's gonna suck." And I remember you kind of going, "Well, dude, it's gonna increase revenue." You understand why? And is it really gonna bother anybody? And it was kind of like, yeah, and then once we saw the ads, it was like, yeah, you really don't even notice them. It could very well just, instead of a sticker that says CCW or Warrior or whatever, now it says SAP or it says Milk or whatever. But then the NHL added ad patches to the jerseys, and more fans didn't like that. Some said, however, we probably won't even notice. I got to tell you, I still notice them. There's a couple that are a little on the egregious side. Washington, not so much. Minnesota, whoo, doggy. Do I see
that's good. That's because Washington is smart, and they have a customized color scheme patch for each jersey. Like even their reverse retro jersey, they had a patch in the proper color scheme.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. And I'm still thankful that the Sharks have not added patches. When they called the jersey the Evolve jersey, I hope that's not part of the next evolution.
I'm still surprised that they don't have patches, just because the Sharks have historically been at the front of the line for the shilling, we'll say.
Yeah. I mean, geez, I've been asking how long until Fanatics files bankruptcy. They won't, dude. They're doing gambling now. It's going to be a long cry from that. And Jack's saying Cool Hockey is going to get some nice business. I'll tell you what, if you get on Hockey Jersey Reddit, Cool Hockey at one point was like pretty, I think they're like one of the verified people to go through. They've lost their verification. Cool Hockey has not had a good season. Go check that out if you're interested. But getting back to this, when the digital ads on the boards happened, you had the fans like, "Oh, this is so annoying," and I'm still one of those people. Some of them, I don't care if it's static. You know, if you just snap your finger and it just goes from SAP to Pepsi or whatever. That I don't care. When I see that big ass puck moving across the board or the Toyota truck going, that drives me insane. I hate that. But there are still people that said, "Oh, I don't really notice it. Doesn't bother me." This announcement, everyone hates it. National sports writers didn't call out those other things. They're calling out this. Business Insider reached out to Fanatics for comment on the overwhelming negative reaction and didn't get a response. Fanatics knows that they're hated. It's and you had the opportunity to spin this however you wanted, but you declined comment, which basically says, "Yeah, we suck, so we really don't have anything to say."
Right. Well, because the smart play there would have just come out and said, you know, we believe in our brand and we believe we're going to do a good job and we want to win the fans back over, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Easy.
But it said, in fact, several prominent NHL media learned this week just how much the NHL fan base detests Fanatics. But what was also really funny about the 32 Thoughts part was, what did he say? He said that something along the lines of, no GM is going to come out and say this, but you can tell a lot of GMs are very like on edge about this. Like, I don't understand.
As they should be.
Yeah, but like, can't the owners like get together and go, "Gary, no"?
No, they wouldn't, because again, why would they say no to money?
Because they don't want to piss off the fans?
No.
All right.
Fans are going to show up anyway. I'll tell you what.
But they're not going to spend money at the kiosk.
It's okay.
All right.
They'll have more. Because think about it like this: it's like I said earlier, everything is intertwined. Hey, you know what? I don't have to save $200 for a jersey this year. I'm gonna go to my first game of the season. I'm gonna buy $200 worth of beer and get gooned. Guess what? You're still giving them money.
I feel seen.
You're still giving them money. You know what I mean?
Dude, I mean, have you ever seen an announcement met with so much overwhelming hate, though? I mean, dude, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, everybody hates it. And you would think, like, Fanatics in the NHL might go, "Wow, people really fucking hate Fanatics." And maybe Fanatics thinks, you know, maybe we should start checking orders before they go out. Or maybe we should hire people that know the difference between the LA Kings and the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, what's the difference? They both wore purple and gold. There's Kings in the name. Ship it. And what happens when a player sneezes, the ad patch falls off, and someone slips on it like a Mario Kart banana peel? I don't think that's going to. Yeah, I mean, I'm taking things to the extreme, but it's because of the reputation that they have earned themselves over the last decade. And here's the one question that I didn't consider earlier.
Okay.
First off, will we finally see game quality, you know, what they call made in Canada right now? Are we finally going to see that return to retail? Or
no?
Okay.
They're gonna market the breakaway jersey as the authentic. They're gonna stitch a fight strap to the frickin' breakaway jersey and be like, $350, please.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, are they gonna go the Reebok route? If they like when Reebok controlled it all, they introduced that third tier in the middle of, crappy replica game quality. Or is Fanatics going to do that as well? And are the prices going to go back up? Because remember, when Reebok was running, it was $150 for replica, $300 for Indo authentic. And then when you had competition between Adidas and Fanatics, prices came down, as did the quality. So are the prices going to go back up? That's what I want to see.
I guess we'll find out, right?
Yes. And what if Fanatics are the ones that come in and save the whole regional sports network debacle?
Well, here's the other. I think it's also worth saying.
Dude, could you imagine the Fanatics Sports Network?
It'd be hilarious.
Ugh.
Somebody would trip over the cable and the transmission would go down.
No, it'd be like the movie Airplane with the
whoops. Exactly. I think it's also worth saying that, as much as we expect Fanatics to do a poor job, that doesn't mean that we want them to do a poor job, right?
Absolutely correct. But it's the fact that so many people expect them to shit the bed on this because they've earned their reputation.
Say you got to pull up that sign from that protest. Our expectations for you were low, but holy fuck.
Oh, you are so right. So right. So, well, again, this is something that is 5 years that we'll come back and talk about this again, I suppose. But dude, just for a second, let's say they do fuck this up. Mm-hmm. Like, let's say that once they get their hands inside because as far as I know, Adidas has like some patents or some trademarks or something on the material and how they do their jerseys now. So that belongs to Adidas unless Fanatics is going to, shell out buckets and buckets of money. What happens if they once they put their fingers in there, all of a sudden we start hearing players going, ugh, this stuff sucks. I don't know.
Well, I don't want to. I better not say anything. I don't want to jam anyone up. But there was somebody who did mention to me, somebody who is very familiar with this certain thing. Mm-hmm. They basically said, we miss the Adidas stuff. The Fanatics Authentic Pro Gear sucks. And I don't want to say who it is or where they, I don't want to say what they do or who they do it for or anything like that. But this person is involved with an NHL team. We'll just say.
Yeah, I was going to say I would bet money that I know exactly who you're talking about. So let's move on because God knows I've spun so much yarn about the Fanatics.
Pick it up.
I'm telling you. The Athletic went an interesting way this week. I totally like this. They put out a We Got It Wrong series about predictions made at the beginning of the season. I thought this was like really cool because too often you see people that pat themselves on the back. They got one thing right and they're out there retweeting it. Hey, look what I said, a year ago or whatever. Yet they never retweet it when they get it wrong the other 90% of the time. I believe that's known as the Skip Bayless. But Massasak, who he hasn't done one, at least that I'm aware of at this point. I'm not sure if he is. I just know that a few other writers did, but I was like, oh, I wonder how well he did on his predictions. So he did 10 bold predictions. Number 1, Karlsson will play more than 60 games for the first time since arriving in San Jose.
Law of averages would say that's true.
Yeah, I don't, would I file that under bold? I mean, based on the time that he spent in San Jose, but at some point it was going to have to be like, you better. We're not even going to care if you're injured. We're throwing you out there. Deal with it. Number 2 was 3 of Cunnin, Lorentz, Lindblom, and Sturm. I'm sorry, Lawrence. It's Lawrence, right?
Yes.
Okay, excuse me. Cunnin, Lawrence, Lindblom, and Sturm would set career highs in goals scored. So Sturm did it. Lindblom's not even close. Cunnin was injured, and Lawrence is tied?
Yeah, Lawrence has tied his career high, which, as far as bold, I would consider this a bold prediction. And even though he didn't hit it, he came pretty close. I'm actually I think that's a good shout.
That's a partial credit.
Yeah,
that's a partial credit. Vlasic will play more than 18 games 18 games. I don't know. That was a little close. Were we sure if he was going to hit 20 this year? No. Vlasic will play more than 18 minutes per game for the first time in 3 years. Massasak did not get this, but Jesus Christ, he couldn't have gotten any closer. What's he averaging? 1735?
1735. And there's still time for that average to go up.
Yeah, he could bump it. So that one, again, I'm going to say partial credit on that. Someone who is not currently on the roster will finish in the top 4 in minutes per game on the defensive core. I'm going to go and say this is a miss.
Yeah, I mean, unless there was an idea that, I don't even know. Unless he thought the Sharks were going to trade for somebody. I would say it's bold just because I didn't.
Or that I
see
think
it
he was.
happening, you know?
I think he was also expecting more from Cuda players.
Sure.
So, the power play will finish in the top 20 for the first time since 1819. Not even close.
Definitely bold, though.
Bold prediction, way wrong. Someone not named Meyer, Hurdle, or Couture will finish among the top 3 forwards in power play points. That's a miss.
Very bold.
Yes, I totally agree. Eklund will lead all Sharks Eklund will lead all Sharks rookies in goals and points, but not in games played. I feel like
he's half right.
I was going to say we really don't have a lot to work with here.
Well, because you look at the roster right now. So the leading scorer for rookies is Nick Cicek. He's got 4 assists. And then it's Eklund with 2 goals and an assist. So
partially right.
Yeah, close, but
Strauss-Mann and Thomas Bordeleau will both be contenders for AHL Rookie of the Year. I'm going to say that's a miss.
I thought, considering what Thomas Bordeleau had done in limited games last year, I don't know that I thought he would, but I think I had heard worse opinions. You know what I mean?
Well, and when I see that Bordeleau will be a contender for AHL Rookie of the Year, to be fair, at the beginning of the season, I was just kind of it's going to be tough to contend for the AHL Rookie of the Year when you're playing in the N. I thought Bordeleau was probably going to get caught up at some point, and stick, because that's how bad things were for San Jose. But Greer has other things in mind. The Sharks will trade someone who is not a pending UFA before the deadline.
They traded multiple guys.
Yeah, but I don't. Is that bold? To be debated. I mean, when we all talk about where we were with Meyer, although I do remember at the beginning of the season, you said that you did not think Meyer would be traded.
Yeah, I didn't think.
Yeah.
But the Sharks, they trade. I mean, obviously Meyer, but even then, you take Meyer out of it, Hotika wasn't a pending UFA. Jacob Magna wasn't a pending UFA. Ryan Merkley wasn't. Jasper Weatherby wasn't.
Yeah,
so they've almost exclusively traded non-pending UFAs.
Yeah, so that's a solid hammer nail, right? And then finally, the Sharks will secure a top 5 selection in the 23 NHL draft. Now, I don't know that I would call that bold. I think pretty much everybody who covers the NHL expected that to be the case when literally everybody has San Jose in the bottom 5 of the league. That probably increases your hopes of getting a top 5 selection. But either way, a couple of those predictions, I was like, man, Chief nailed it. But again, like I'm saying, it's nice to see guys own it when they miss it. Because again, the ones that bang themselves on the back for getting one thing right when they got 9 wrong, got no time for you. Oh boy, let's move on to what was a pretty difficult weekend to deal with.
Ooh, Barracuda.
Oh man, it was this whole week sucked. The CUDA went 1-3. They got absolutely waxed in Colorado, 8-0. Dell got pulled after the first, saved 10 of 14. Man comes in, saved 17 of 21, but you thought the 6-0 shellacking that the Avalanche gave the Sharks was bad. The Eagles played with their food. The following game, a little bit better. It's a 3-2 loss, though, despite Tristan Robbins giving the CUDA a lead twice. I'll tell you, Robbins, player of the week for the CUDA. And, but again, the CUDA can't hang on. Dell, obviously a lot better, saving 29 of 32. They did pick up one win, a 5-1 win versus Bakersfield yesterday. Nathan Burke, who? I don't even know who this guy is, but he evidently scored twice, including the game winner and a helper. And in this game, Robbins had a goal and 2 assists. Again, Robbins had a hell of a week. That dude wants the Sharks jersey in his stall. And unfortunately today, 4-1 loss on Pucks and Paws Day. The lone goal coming from Bordelot, which was a sick top shelf backhand. And it did open the scoring, but it all went backwards after that. But look, he did have Bordelot, who has been kind of quiet of late, had goals in back-to-back games. So you like to see that. But the thing you don't like to see, of course, is right now the CUDA are 5 points on the outside of the playoff picture. It is not looking good. They're going to have to finish huge. Let's go to our tweet of the week, and you'll have to forgive me because it's the one thing that I had forgotten to prep for. But let's run it, Steven. Tweet of the week. And of course, it's going to go back to what we had earlier, but let me drop in what I meant. Look at this license plate. Now, I feel like you can take this a couple of different ways. You know, the license plate says, for the audio listeners, SHARXEH. On one hand, you could look at that and go, Sharks, eh? And I feel like the way Jerk and I look at this, we're kind of like, Sharks, eh. Am I wrong? Well, I guess Jerk left.
Is there any reason it couldn't be both?
Oh,
depending, because I think you could be.
Solid point.
I think, and I go to our friend Ian on this one.
Two things can be.
You know, it's hey Ian, the Sharks lost. What do you have to talk about? Sharks. Ugh. But then on the flip side, it could be
something good happens. Get to talk about the Sharks. Hey.
Yeah, exactly.
Love it. All right, kids. This week, the Sharks are going to play 2 at home this week, where they've got a ridiculously bad record, but we'll see what happens. We'll see if they can tie the 92-93 team with 8 home wins. And for those of you who are on, Tank Together, want Bedard, of course, you're rooting for the opposite. But they'll play those 2 and then head down to the Mullet, the Bad Haircut Arena in Arizona to pick up one there. Starts on Tuesday versus the Jets. It's like I said earlier, second of 3 meetings. 3 weeks ago, the Sharks did beat the Jets in overtime, but Winnipeg does need all the points they can get right now as they're clinging to that final wild card spot. This is one of 2 possible season sweeps, though, the Sharks could get. The other one, of course, being against Arizona. Then the top team in the West currently, Vegas, comes to SAP for the third of their 3 games. Vegas won at SAP 4-2 last October. San Jose returned the favor, beating the Knights at T-Mobile 5-2 last November. And again, to wrap up the week, the Sharks are going to be in Arizona. San Jose's already beaten them twice, 3-2 and 4-2. So, how do you think the Sharks are going to roll this week, Jerk man? You think this is one of the just by law of averages, they pick up a win this week?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be against Arizona.
Oh, I totally thought you were going to go with Winnipeg.
No, because
I thought that, didn't you call that a couple weeks ago? Yeah, you did. You said a
couple weeks ago, yeah.
You said that it was going to be the Jets that they were going to win. Like they were going to sneak up on them.
Yeah, and that was in the midst of Winnipeg kind of stubbing their toe a little bit, but they've rebounded and they're a good team. Like the Sharks should not be beating them. You know what I mean?
All right. So Arizona, you think? I don't know though. Arizona's played well at bad haircut. So, what are you saying? 1 and 2? 1-1-1?
Yeah, no, 1 and 2. Maybe 1-1-1. One of those.
One of the definitely not 2 and something.
Yeah, it's definitely going to start with a 1.
Nice. Oh. So, anything else that we neglected? Was there another story that like floated your boat, blew your skirt up this week?
No.
Cool. Love it when that happens. On Twitter, you can follow him at hockey_jerk. You can follow me at AJ_strong. Remember to subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already. Leave your take in the comments section of the video if you weren't able to join us live. And you can check out our post-game cast that follow every game this week. Some combination of Puck Guy, Ian, Landy, Dana, Mark. We're not sure. It's always I think we kind of decided the same way, right? We just put all the ping pong balls in there and pull which ones your name's
more
on there.
or less.
Yeah. So you can find links to our social media, podcast apps, and more included in the show notes. And you can get everything on tealtownusa.com. And I know it was mentioned earlier, if you want VIP access to that Discord party, hit up hockey_jerk on the Twitter machine. Right now, do you just want to go on record and say Sharks are picking first or second in this year's draft?
Yes.
Ooh. So Bedard or Fantilli is what you're telling me?
That's exactly what I'm telling you.
Greer would not be silly enough to work a deal for that pick for something else, would he?
No, I don't think so. Because I think if you're, like last year when the Sharks picked 11th last year, correct? Like,
and then traded down.
Right. You could still get a good player at 11, but it's not as big of a deal as potentially getting a player at 1, 2, or 3.
Well, we said at the beginning of this podcast that we're going to try to be positive. I have something positive to tell you, Jerk.
Oh, gosh. Okay. I'm a little nervous.
We only have to do this for 3 more weeks.
Yes.
And of that, I am positive. You know what I'm also positive of? I'm pretty positive that you, my friend, know what an Irish exit is.